Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Miles Beyond the Page. I'm your host, Michelle Miles, and each week I sit down to chat with authors about their writing journeys, the wins, the struggles, and everything in between. So grab your drink and let's go beyond the page together. This is a special bonus episode where I get to talk to author T.L. Johnson, who has an incredible entrepreneurial spirit. Not only is she an author, but she's also the owner of a new mobile bookshop, Midnight Haven Books. So we're going to dive into that. I'm really excited. Welcome, TL Johnson.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. You can call me Terry.
Okay,
That's
good.
fine. I don't
Thank,
mind.
okay, thank you and welcome. And I'm excited to have you. But first, I want to dive into talking about your book, which is a romantic suspense. Did I get
Yes.
that right? Yes.
Yes.
The Storm and the Rose. So tell us about the book and what inspired you to write it.
Okay. So I consider it kind of a gothic romantic suspense, if like a modern telling of a gothic romance, but it's basically Arden Rivers is the female main character. She just came to me as a woman who's been through hell and refuses to be pitied. She just wants to do everything on her own. And I wanted to write about resilience and the way trauma shapes you but doesn't define you.
Hmm.
So at its core, there's desire, obsession, healing, but not love as a rescue. So the male main character isn't there to rescue her. He walks beside her, and that's what's important to me. There's also a stalker who is not the love interest because I know there are a lot of books, the dark romance, where the stalker is the love interest.
Yeah.
That's not the case here. So that's not a spoiler. That does come out pretty early on. So it's not a
Mhm.
spoiler that the stalker is not the love interest.
Well, that's good.
I think so.
So you're working on book two, right? At this
Yes.
point.
So this was one story. So some of this came from my life, just some of the trauma and some of the things that are in it are lived experiences. And
Mm.
so it got so big. It started out as this small draft. It was 38,000 words. And I'm like, what am I going to do with this? So I kept writing and it became 200,000 words.
Oh my
And
goodness.
then I thought, well, I can't take out that much because this story needs to be told.
Yeah.
And so I did a poll on Facebook, which sounds so silly and cliche, but everybody wanted the cliffhanger. They wanted two books and instead of one really long book. So I said, okay, you want a cliffhanger? I got your cliffhanger.
You know,
And
I
it
think,
it is a doozy.
yeah, I think that's really actually a smart idea to poll the readers and see, because there's so many people that are like, no, I don't want a cliffhanger, no cliffhanger. And then there's some readers that are really okay with that. So I
I'd
think
say
that's smart.
yes, 75% wanted a
Wow.
cliffhanger. And I was shocked. I was also quite angry. I was salty about it. And so I was like, okay, I never planned to write a cliffhanger, but I know the perfect place to put it.
Mm.
And so now I have readers who they love it, but they're a little mad. They get to the
Yeah.
end, they're like, wait, I don't, there's only 20 pages left. She can't wrap this up in 20 pages.
Yeah.
And they're right. It's not wrapped up in 20 pages. So The Rose and the Shadows came about because The Storm and the Rose was too big to be one
Mm.
book. So The Storm
Yeah.
and the Rose is 500 pages.
Wow.
And The Rose and the Shadows will not be that long, but it's a continuation of the story. It picks right back up where The Storm and the Rose ends. And I consider myself to be a bit of a poet. And so the titles are poetic. They're not
Mhm.
actually, it sounds like fantasy, The Storm and the Rose and the Shadows, but like I consider people and the things we go through to be storms and you have shadows in your life. But, there are beautiful things that come out of that. So therefore, roses. So that's where the titles came from.
Oh, I love that. That is very poetic.
It is.
Yeah, and I do follow you on Threads, and I always love your Threads posts. They're always so inspiring and wonderful. I love them.
And sometimes unhinged.
Yeah. And the cats. We have to have the cats.
The cats are my daughter put the cats away. They were roaming and they were really upset right now that they're
Oh.
not right here next to me.
Well, if everybody needs to check out your Threads and see the cats because they're adorable.
They are one black one white one. The black
Yeah.
one is chill. I mean, she does life on her own terms. The white one is feral.
That's awesome. But I used to have a black cat. I miss him. He was the best cat I've ever had.
Oh,
So
they're magic.
They
They
are
really are.
magic. Yeah. So let's talk about your writing journey really quick. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start writing in the first place.
So I've always been a word person, even from a very young age. So before I started kindergarten, I could read. And we were very poor. We didn't have books, but someone gave my mom some encyclopedias from the 70s. It was the whole Encyclopedia Britannica, and I read all of them.
Wow.
Um, so, when you get to the bottom of an excerpt and it says, see this word for more
Mhm.
information. So I would
Mhm.
go from here to there, basically choose your own adventure, but encyclopedia style. And
Yeah.
then I was obsessed with dictionaries and a thesaurus. There are so many words to mean so many different things.
Yeah.
So I devoured every word I could find. And then when I was introduced to grammar, I became that person, the person who will correct your grammar because it's extremely important to me, not this just that we pronounce the words correctly, but we use the grammar correctly. And so it's just been a part of my life. I wrote in journals from the time I could write. So I collect notebooks
Oh, nice.
and I write, and I have certain pencils that I love. I mean, I have certain brands. If anybody knows Blackwing, they know their pencils. But so I love a nice journal. I love to write. So writing started very young. I used to write anonymously. I would post stories. I don't know if anybody remembers Yahoo Chat or the
Yes.
chat rooms, but I would post stories. Some of them were a little explicit as a late teen, early 20s. And then I just stopped. So life
Mm,
happened. I was in
yeah.
undergrad. I went to pharmacy school. I went through a divorce. And so writing is something that just stopped. And
Hmm.
then last year, if you follow booktok, you know
Hmm.
it's crazy. And
Hmm.
so I was talking to a coworker in the middle of the night because I work night shift, and it came up, booktok and thirst traps and the men with the masks. And I was like, okay, wait. So hear me out. This guy walks into a bar, and that's literally how this story started. And so she was throwing out ideas. Oh, what about this? I'm like, no, that sounds terrible. But so my story developed basically based on my coworkers' terrible ideas. So I wrote 4 chapters that day,
Hmm.
and I sent them to a few people, my sisters, my mom, my aunt, and a few friends. And they're like, well, what happens next?
Oh.
And I was like, okay, I've never shared anything with anybody before.
Hmm.
And so I've never had anybody hold me accountable, like what happens in the story. And
Hmm.
so I was like, well, what does happen next? So I just kind of talked to the characters and I'm like, okay, what's happening? So I don't have
Mhm.
an outline, I don't have a plan. Um, so that's just how it started. And then I started typing, and before I knew it, it, it had a life of its own.
Yeah. Oh, I think those are the best books too. I love those books that just kind of come to life. So I guess you decided on your genre based on all of that. You knew you were going to write
Yes.
romantic suspense.
So, okay, romantic suspense, I like because you have the intimacy of the romance, but also the high stakes of the suspense.
Yeah.
But then I love throwing in that psychological depth that where the characters are scarred, they have a dark past. I mean, none of us are what we seem. We all
Hmm.
have a history. So in the book, these characters have a history. I have a character list and I know everybody's backstory. Even if I don't tell it in the book, I know their backstory. It may be a minor character who you see
Hmm.
3 times, but I know their history because I think everybody needs a backstory and it may be relevant later.
It
So
might.
those levels of complexity. So there's
Hmm.
romance, suspense, psychological, emotion, just humans. We're not one thing. We're not just romantic. We're not just suspenseful. We're all layered. So I
Yeah.
like just all the layers in the book.
I love it. I think I do that too. I have a story, what I call my story Bible, where I keep all of everything. I don't go as far as doing backstories for characters, but I do need to know exactly who they are and what they look like because I forget.
Yes. There's a character in the book. He's a bartender. And so his backstory, he's from Miami. He played in a band. That doesn't really come out. Like maybe
Yeah.
occasionally they'll quote something, but I just like to know, give everybody a
Yeah.
personality.
Yeah, it helps. It for sure helps.
Yeah.
So your writing process. Do you have a typical writing routine and what does that look like?
So I don't do an outline or anything like that. I kind of knew where it was starting and where it was ending. But as far as what happens in the middle, the characters tell me where to go. So sometimes ideas and scenes come to me when I'm in the car, and talk to text is my best friend because
Mm.
I am a fast typist, but I talk
Mhm.
faster. And so
Yeah.
I'm just taking notes in the car. I just start talk to text and I work out scenes. And then later I take those scenes and put them into their own document. And then I'll just label it like brunch. And then I know brunch is going to happen at some point. I don't know where, so I start putting the chapters together and then I think of scenes that go in certain areas. So that's just kind of how it goes. Now, as far as atmosphere,
Mhm.
I have this really old nasty chair, this brown recliner, and I like to light a woodwick candle because I love the crackle. I have a Storm in the Rose, or really the Storm and Shadow duology playlist, and it's moody and romantic, but also disturbing. And so it just sets the mood. So I set the mood for myself.
Mhm. Mhm.
Also there's coffee.
Of course.
But so yeah, so I set the mood for myself. I get in this headspace and I just type.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. I love being lost in the in that world as type, and it's so great. It feels so good.
Yes.
Um, so what are some tools that you like to use or techniques to help you stay motivated and overcome any kind of writer's block you might have?
Um, I don't really think I have writer's block. I think maybe if I reach a point in the story where I don't know really what I want to happen next, I just move to a different project. I am not diagnosed with ADHD, so we're not even going to go there, but I always have 10 things going at once. So I'll just
Mm,
step away from it. There was one character in The Storm and the Rose who was quite loud, and so she demanded a rom-com. So in the middle of writing The Storm and the Rose, I took a couple of weeks and wrote a rom-com for this character. And so that took me away from The Storm and the Rose, but
mhm.
also I was able to develop the characters from The Storm and the Rose. So it's interconnected. And I
Oh, I
may
love
never
it.
publish it, but she demanded a book.
Mhm.
But if anybody reads The Storm and the Rose, they'll be like, I know which character it is. She's loud and vibrant. So sometimes stepping away from the project that I'm working on helps
Mhm.
me to go back to it with fresh eyes. And I've edited for people for years, really for a few decades. That's really aging me, but whatever. So I've edited novels, essays, thesis, dissertation, whatever. And so I do edit my own work. And so stepping away from it and doing something different helps me to go back with fresh eyes and say, okay, what were you thinking? Or let's develop this more. And I go back over my draft until I think it's nearly perfect. So I go back
Mhm.
over and over and over. And so that's kind of my process. If I just don't feel like writing, if I'm not in a creative space, I know that I'm not. And I'm like, today is just not a good day for this. And I do something else. So I
Mm.
don't consider it to be a block. I just say, I'm not in a creative space today. And I'm not going to push myself to do something that I know I can't give fully.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like it. I really like your dictation idea too, though.
It
You just,
helps.
yeah, I've never been able to do
Yes,
that. My brain has never been able to like. So I want to back up a little bit and talk. How do you get your mind set in that dictation mode? Like it's a different type of writing,
it
really.
is. It is a different type of writing. So say I'm driving down the road. I have about a 40-minute commute and I'm like, oh my God. I think this needs to happen because I feel like this character is becoming a victim, and I
Hmm.
don't want her to be a victim. She's a survivor. So, how do I give her agency? And so I'm like, okay, this scene needs to happen so that we see that she's really strong and she can stand on her own 2 feet, and we don't give her a victim mentality. So sometimes it's as simple as that. I'm like, okay, what do I do to make sure the reader sees that she's not weak, and in this moment she might be a victim, but she doesn't feel that way.
Hmm. I
So
love
sometimes
it.
it starts with just a concept. And
Hmm.
so thematically, sometimes that's where the scene comes from. So say I want to give the male main character a little bit of humanity
Hmm.
because he does have a privileged background. And so to make him feel a bit more human, what do I do? And so that's how a scene comes about. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to do this. And I just start talking and I talk to text. I'm like, what if I do this? What if this happens? And then, oh, this happens too. So I'm basically having a meeting with myself.
I love it.
I mean, they always say consult an expert.
Yeah.
She's right here. But now my text at work, I will randomly come up with an idea. So I'll just turn my talk to text on and I will
Mhm.
start talking and they know I'm talking to myself. In the beginning, they were like, "What?" And now they know I'm having a consultation with myself. So, but then one of them told me this week that I was talking into my iPhone's butthole. And now I'm like, I think I need a microphone. So I think
That's
I need to
funny.
just get a little microphone to put on my shirt
Yeah.
because now I can't think of it as anything else. Because I'm just talking to the end of my phone, and now I'm like, I can't talk into my phone's tail. So,
That's
so
funny.
now I need a microphone.
Well,
So
I love
yeah,
this
they're used to
concept.
me just talking. They're like, it sounds like just whispering and muttering and incoherent, but my phone has really good abilities to understand me when I'm basically whispering.
Nice.
And my
Well, I
husband
love
will
this.
say, "Who are you talking to?" And I'm like, "Myself."
I love this concept. I've got to figure out a way to do it. I just,
It it's so good because what if you come up with an idea and you're
yeah,
shopping? You're out shopping
right.
and you're like, "Wait a minute, I need this
Yeah.
to happen," and you just turn on your talk to text and just start talking, and even if it's incoherent, you may look at it later and say, "There's some brilliance here. That is
Hmm.
gold." Or, "I remember when I was in that moment, and this is what I was thinking," and then the words flow.
Nice. I like to compose while I'm trying to fall asleep, which is never a good idea because then I fall asleep and then the next morning I'm like, what was that?
Okay, so that's where talk to text is perfect because nobody wants to grab their notebook and try to write down the
Right.
idea. But if you just say, "Hey Siri, take notes,"
Hmm.
then yeah,
That's a great
she does it.
idea. I
She does
love
it.
it.
And so I do give that advice regularly when people are like, "Oh, I just can't find time." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever ideas you have, just talk to text, even if they become nothing. You may have 10 story ideas, but if you don't ever get them out of your head, they are not real."
Right. Yeah. And you forget them if you don't write them down somewhere somehow.
Yeah.
Love
Yes.
it. So let's talk about your publishing journey. You're indie published,
Yes, I am.
and I love that.
It was
Can
really important to me.
Yeah.
Um,
So share with
so
us about that.
it's important to me to do indie publishing. And backstory, I am a literature geek. I love all the classics. I love traditionally published books. I never wanted to traditionally publish because I had no voice growing up. I was made to feel small and I wasn't allowed to have anything of my own. And so I knew whatever I create is going to be 100% mine. Is it more work? Absolutely. And we
Yeah.
wear a lot of hats in indie publishing. You're
Right.
basically your own publishing company. And so that's where that came from. I just knew that I needed to do it on my own. I choose my cover, I choose my title. The story is mine. Nobody's telling me to change it. Nobody says, "Oh, take this out." I make those decisions. And so it's
Hmm.
important for me to basically have my own agency and autonomy in writing. And you
Hmm.
can't have that when you have a big publisher just because somebody else makes decisions and you don't
Hmm.
get to say so.
Right. Yes. I love indie publishing too. It is a lot of work, but
So much work.
it is, but it's so fun to see it from conception to publication too. That whole journey. What were some of your biggest surprises or challenges you faced publishing your book?
I say challenges that I didn't realize is the sheer volume of hats that you will wear.
Yeah.
Editing,
Yeah.
publishing, your ISBNs, marketing, creating graphics. And I've always been really savvy with creating graphics and I love, coding and that kind of thing. But you don't realize how much you need to scream about your book because you don't
Yeah.
have a publishing team, you don't have a marketing team.
Hmm.
You're it. And so
Hmm.
that's the challenge is getting your work out there.
Hmm.
Also, I know we're going to get to Midnight Haven, but that's where that came from is
Yeah.
assisting other authors because this is not an easy journey and the writing community is supportive to a point. And so I wanted to create a platform that helped in that regard.
And that is a great segue to talking about your mobile bookshop. So, um, we met via threads. for
Yes.
your self-rec Saturday. So talk to us a little bit about how this all came about. You touched on it a little bit, but and how it's going and how you're curate these indie reads.
Yes. So it came because I realized that indie authors don't have a platform. So to get your book out there is really hard. And to get into bookstores, you do the legwork. And I realized that so many indie stores, they have you do consignment. And
Mm,
I read some terms and conditions that just didn't make me happy, where they're like, okay, we do consignment. And if your book sells, you make a portion, we make a portion. But if your book is stolen, that's on you. And I think that is so unfair. No other market, no other industry puts the risk on the product maker.
yeah.
So if any retail store has a product stolen, they take the loss. So
Hmm.
you're telling me that an indie author has to take the loss if your establishment allows theft.
Right.
I think that's so wrong. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to give a platform to indie authors. So that's where the Self-Rec Saturday came in. Like, tell me about your book, share your cover. The more you share it, the easier it gets to talk about it. So
Hmm.
even if every Saturday you're just yelling about your book to me, I'm listening, I'm looking, but I'm not the only one. Those posts get thousands of views.
They
And
do.
it's not people liking them. I mean, 10,000 people may see that. That doesn't mean that they're going to comment, they don't engage, but that might be one person who says, you know what, that book is for me. And
Yeah.
it's across all genres. I don't exclude anybody. It could be someone who loves romance, queer romance, interracial. It doesn't matter. Everybody is welcome.
Hmm.
So I want everyone to scream about their book. So Midnight Haven came about because I said, okay, wait, why can't I open an indie bookshop and stock only indie authors?
Hmm.
And so I work 7 on, 7 off as a night shift pharmacist in long term care. So on my off week, I said, okay, I can do a pop up. So mobile bookshop on my own terms, and I can just stock indie authors so they know they have a place with me. So I started out any books that I gravitated towards. So Self-Rec Saturday, or if someone is screaming into the void, I noticed. And
Hmm.
so I would go and read samples. You know, you can peek inside the book.
Yeah.
You can do Kindle Unlimited, which I have. So I read samples and then I would reach out in DMs and just say, hey, you don't know me. I'm doing an indie bookshop soon. I would love to have your titles. If you're on Ingram, I can go that way. If you prefer, I buy wholesale from you. Let's do that. Reach out to me. I would share my email. My DMs are open, but also email just in case someone's account gets banned, or,
Hmm.
you never know what glitches might
Right.
happen with social media. So I do
Right.
try to tell authors to go ahead and save my email just in case. So I started reading titles. So I read a chapter or two. Sometimes it's not a good fit. And if someone reaches out with a submission and it's not a good fit, I do let them know that right now it's not a good fit. That doesn't mean it won't always be. But if
Hmm.
you have upcoming releases, keep me in mind. Definitely reach back out. If they ask for more information on why it's not a good fit, I do try to go ahead and give them that information just from my perspective, what makes it more marketable, what makes it sellable, just because I don't want to do gatekeeping.
Yeah.
And I try to be transparent because it's important that we're not gatekeeping, because that's what happens in trad publishing. And so I don't want that. And I don't want anyone to feel excluded. So I want them to know why I can't stock them, because I do have limited space. So the
Mm.
books that are in there, I want to know that they're going to resonate with my readers. And we're in a small community and I'll be doing pop ups in small communities. So it needs to be something that's accessible. I don't stock any paperbacks over $24.99 because I feel like that's above what my community is spending.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
even if they fell in love with something in the shop, say it was $29.99, and that is more than they can probably afford. And
Hmm.
not that there aren't people who could, but I want it to be accessible to everyone.
Yeah. And I try to keep that in mind when I price my paperbacks too.
Yes.
And I know that I've seen tons of paperbacks that are just, like you said, 29.99. Um, what is the best way? So you've talked about your DMs. So is that the best way for an indie author to get their book? Is they just pitch it to you basically through your DM or email?
Yes. So if I haven't already reached out to them, because there are some that they appeal to me I see them, but I can't see everyone. So if they
Yeah.
see me, then they can reach out in DMs. They have to follow me because I think there's some weird thing. If you're not
Yeah.
following Midnight Haven Books, then it goes to a hidden request and I may not see it. I do have a pinned post there. So my email is listed, midnightmaven@midnighthavenbooks.com, and people pitch all the time there. That sometimes they give me a one sheet, they tell me their wholesale terms, they give me blurbs, just whatever they think I need to be able to make a decision on whether to stock their book. And I do tell them
Mm-hmm.
it does take me a little bit of time because it's just me. I am reading excerpts, and so it's it, it just may take a minute. But yeah,
Yeah.
my email DMs if they're following me. So I want to be accessible, but there is a little bit of a waiting period
Right.
sometimes just because I am looking at everything.
Yeah. And you work. So
And I do work. Sometimes I'm like, I'm on my 7 on and I'm sleeping during the day. I
yeah.
am not available. So
Yeah.
so 7 on, 7 off. It is a great schedule, but it does have limitations on what I can do on my on week.
Yeah. So when will your shop be live where readers can find it?
So the bookshop should open in about a month is my first pop-up event. And then I don't know yet if I will have a store online. I am
Hmm.
signed up with bookshop.org as an affiliate, as a partner, also with Libro FM, but I don't know if I'll be selling books online. I think it's going to be more of I'm going to pop up in small communities that don't have the population to support a large bookstore. And
Hmm.
so I'll go there on the weekends, maybe a few days, a long weekend, and just do it in those communities that can't support a bookstore, but definitely need access. They do have small libraries, but they
Hmm.
don't have access to indie authors, and they're
Right.
nowhere near even a large chain. So
Yeah.
this gives them the ability to, take a look, and it's something different. It's not something that we have here. And so hopefully it's something that's well received.
I love this and I love what you're doing for indie authors. It's so fantastic. And as an indie author, I really appreciate it too.
No, I love it. And most indie authors that I've reached out to let them know I'm stalking them, they're really excited and they're
Yeah.
supportive. And of course, you have those that don't want to be involved, and that's fine. If you want to connect with me, you want to be engaging in the writing community, I love that. If you want to do your own thing and stay in your lane, I'm also supportive of that. I mean,
Hmm.
everybody has their own journey. So I'm not for
Right.
everyone and everyone's not for me. And I understand that.
Yeah, that's great. So not only do you have a store, but you have a publishing imprint.
Yes, I do have the imprint. So the imprint came about because I have seen some authors talk about how much it costs to have an editor, how much it costs to get your book formatted. And I don't want someone with a beautiful story to feel like they don't have a way to get their book out there.
Hmm.
So I feel like, what, pun intended, I'm an open book. So if you need information, if you need guidance, I'm here and I am willing to take on authors under the Midnight Haven umbrella, so to
Hmm.
speak. And I do have a few authors that I am talking to who might need a little assistance. And maybe it's just something as simple as getting ISBNs or figuring out how do you get your
Yeah.
Library of Congress number. And these are things that no one tells you. You do have to
No.
figure everything out on your own. So when
Right.
someone says, how do I do this? I have that information now and I want to make sure everyone has it. So
Yeah.
if there's something I can do, then I want to do it. And my moral compass is just, it's equality is so important to me,
Yeah.
fairness and justice. And that was just something that I didn't see growing up because
Mm.
we were so poor. And I don't want to get into my trauma story, but
Right.
it was just important for me to embrace people and meet them where they are
Yeah.
and be the person that you needed when you were growing up. And I try to be that. I try to be better than I was yesterday. And I'm
Mm.
not perfect, but that's okay. No one else is.
Right.
But if I can do one little thing in my small community, then I've made some difference. And so we
Yeah.
can't make big changes sometimes, but we can make little changes and little changes ripple. And so
Yes.
hopefully this will create a ripple.
I love what you're doing. I think it's just amazing and it's so inspiring too. It's just I love it. I love seeing you on social media. I follow you everywhere, obviously. So,
You're stalking me,
yeah, I am stalking you, but in a good
but
way.
I'm stalking you too.
It's a mutual stalking. I love
It is.
it. Um, so we are getting close to running out of time, and I want to ask just a couple of more questions. One, what is one piece of advice you wish you'd had earlier in your writing journey?
Oh, a piece of advice I wish I had had early in my journey. I really don't know. I am stumped with that.
It's a hard question.
It is a hard question because I am the type of person that I will figure it out. So
Yeah.
I don't necessarily go to people for advice. And that's
Hmm.
just being on my own and being independent for so long, even as a child. And so just figuring it out.
Yeah.
And so there were so many things and so many nuances that you don't know about. And that's why I want to share with everyone. So it's not one thing that I wish I had known, just the entire publishing process and maybe the gatekeeping part of it with traditional publishing, how self-published authors aren't recognized as being equal to traditionally published
Mm.
authors. And that's something that I didn't realize. One other thing I didn't realize, and this is a big one, reviews are very important.
Yes.
I did not know. I have read thousands of books and I have not left reviews. And so I kept track of how many books I read last year before I started writing, and I read 250 books.
Wow.
And well, I worked 7 on 7 off, so
Yeah.
I was reading and now I'm writing. So
Yeah.
I didn't start writing until November after a hiatus of writing for decades.
Hmm.
But so I read. So I just recently went back to my app that I keep track of the books, and it's called Bookmemory, like
Hmm.
memory, but
Hmm.
Bookmemory.
Hmm.
And so I went back through the calendar, and every book I read, I gave a rating in that app. So I went back through on Goodreads and I rated everybody.
Oh, that's
So
fantastic.
I so I can't stress the importance of reviewing, even if you leave a
Yeah.
star rating for someone, even if you just say, I loved it, I hated it,
Yeah.
whatever, just just leave a review. I had
Yeah.
no idea how important they were, but they get you, your indie author noticed, they get regular authors noticed. Everybody needs reviews to get their book out there. And as much as we hate to say it, the algorithm matters. And
It
so
does. Hmm.
it is skewed by reviews, and that's why we need them so much. And so maybe not part of my writing, but part of being a writer, I had no idea reviews were so important.
Yeah. And they really are. That's why we beg and plead and grovel for them.
Yes, we
Um,
do. But
yeah.
please review my book.
Yeah. So, and one last question. What advice do you have for someone wanting to start writing or start a business in the publishing world?
Okay, so if you want to start writing, like we've talked about, if you have an idea, get it out of your head.
Hmm.
If you like to write with pencil and paper, do that. If you want to use talk to text, if you just type into your phone, open your notes app and just start typing. You can get so many things just out of your head. And once they're out, then you have something to look at. You have that idea that isn't just in your head, it's real. Once it's on paper or once it's in an app, once it's in Word, even if that's where you type, that
Hmm.
idea is out in the world. It's not just sitting in your head. So that makes it real to you. So that means you may come back to it.
I love it.
As far as entrepreneurial endeavors, I don't know. I never thought I was an entrepreneur. I never imagined that I would open a business. I had
Hmm.
no clue. And so I just, when I started writing, I said, okay, I think I need to create an LLC
Yeah.
and I need to do this correctly because my mind just went to what happens when I file my taxes?
Yeah.
So I just thought I need all of this to fall under an umbrella, which is Midnight Haven Books. And so that started out as an imprint for me to put all of my business expenses under, whether that's ads, whether that's, paying for author copies, marketing, whatever expenses go under that and not my personal account.
Hmm.
So it started as just keeping the business expenses separate. So I think that has been important with making the business into a bookshop, that everything has been separate. So I think
Yeah.
getting your business separate from your personal finances. And I I love to say have a plan, but I'm not really a planner. I'm a pantser. Remember plotters versus pantsers. I don't outline. I don't really plan. I decide that I'm doing something and then I do it.
I
And
feel
so
like we're very similar in that.
yes. So I just don't give myself the option of not doing it. I
Yeah.
never give myself the option to fail. And so I just push through. And if you have an idea, just go with it. I joke with my husband, what's the opposite of procrastinating? And he says it's overachieving. And
Yeah.
I just can't accept that.
Yeah. Some of the things you're saying is so, it's like, oh my gosh, that's me. That's what I do. I had no intention of launching a podcast, and here I am 20 some
No.
odd episodes later.
Yes. And you're doing an amazing job.
Oh, thank you. Um, well, I just want to say thank you very much for taking time to talk to me today. I really appreciate it. And I really love what you're doing for the indie author community. I think it's just fantastic. So before we wrap, tell us where we can find you and your work and your bookshop online.
Okay, you can find my book, The Storm and the Rose, everywhere. It's on all of the big publishing websites. It is at bookshop.org, which supports indie bookstores, as you know. It will be available in audiobook in November, by the way.
Nice.
I have the insanely talented Jackie Pryor currently recording.
Wow.
But
Awesome.
also, you can find me at tljohnsonauthor.com. My books are linked there. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, TL Johnson Author. I'm also on Threads. I'm a little bit unhinged there. So, TL Johnson Author. I'm also, constantly sharing my random thoughts. If you're on TikTok, I am the Midnight Maven. I'm not on there as much, but I do occasionally get on there and just shout out to the world.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
you can find me basically everywhere, but TL Johnson Author, and then Midnight Haven. The Instagram for that is Midnight Haven Books. That's also on Facebook and midnighthavenbooks.com.
Awesome. And all of these links will be available in the show notes for people to go check out and click on the links and follow you and buy your book. Um,
Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you. So again, thanks again to TL Johnson for joining us and sharing her incredible journey and all of her insights and supporting the indie author community. I just love it. Be sure to check out her book, The Storm and the Rose. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and share your favorite part of the conversation. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep writing, and I'll see you miles beyond the page. Thanks for joining me on Miles Beyond the Page. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. If you're an author and want to be a guest, visit milesbeyondthepage.com and fill out the guest intake form to apply. Keep writing, keep dreaming, and I'll see you next time.